All right, welcome back. Time for our court report, and we're going to start with same-sex marriage. There has, or rather, the Defense of Marriage Act. There has been a lot of movement on this in the recent weeks. A federal judge in New York last week found the Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA, unconstitutional because the judge argued it interferes with states' rights to regulate marriage. This is now the fifth judge to find the law, which defines marriage as between a man and a woman, as unconstitutional. It comes on the heels of a similar ruling in a federal court in Massachusetts, and it begs a number of questions, political questions about whether this is something Congress needs to take up, and whether the Supreme Court should take up the Defense of Marriage Act. And Mark, we're going to start with you. The same-sex marriage case out of California is already on its way to the Supreme Court. What's going on with DOMA, and what does this? Is this thing going to get overturned in the courts before it ever gets to Congress?
I think DOMA is going to wend its way into the Supreme Court before Prop 8 because DOMA is a clean federal statute for them to review. And, you know, as you indicated, there are 5 decisions that have come out. I don't think there's any split, though. And for our viewers at home, I mean, one of the criteria for getting a case before the Supreme Court is that lower federal courts are divided. And all of the judges, virtually all of the federal judges, are striking this thing down, either on equal protection grounds or 10th Amendment grounds or Commerce Clause grounds. So there has to be a split that will emerge before the case will get to the Supreme Court.
Defense of Marriage Act passed during the Clinton administration. I think I'm right on that. Was that?
No, it actually came up and was signed by George Bush, as I recall, during the period of time I was in Congress. Connecticut has a law that allows gay marriage. I accept that. I agree with you. The federal government has no business regulating these kind of social issues, in my view. I think this is something that should fall within the 18th Amendment and states' rights.
Do I have to go back and check and see how you voted on it?
I can just tell you how I voted.
Go ahead.
I voted against it.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, as we know, the Obama administration has refused to defend the law. So Congress has had to appoint Paul Clement, the former Solicitor General, to handle the defense. And millions of taxpayer dollars are pouring into this, and whether you support gay marriage or against it, it seems pretty much inevitable that it's going to become legalized at some point. And why spend all of this money and all of these years in litigation when the budget is so tight as it is, defending this, which is really postponing the inevitable?
If it's going to change anyway in the courts, my take is that Congress should jump in and change it before there, and just get it out of the courts. And unfortunately, got to move on to the next one, which is we did not get a decision today on health care reform. Now, before the end of the month,
I'll give you a decision.
We're going to hear from the High Court on the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. Mark, can you give us any insight? Again, we've gone through. You were here when it was first argued.
Right.
They could either throw the whole thing out, or throw out the individual mandate, or keep the whole thing.
My view of it has changed since the last time because the court has been taking a lot of flack in the court of public opinion. There was that New York Times thing that came out last week. The court's popularity is at its ebb. And I don't think the court is going to risk another black eye to its institutional integrity by invalidating this statute after the flack it took for Citizens United and Bush versus Gore. I think the whole thing will be sustained.
To the politics, is there any way this thing isn't a massive issue this November on the presidential race and all other federal races?
It absolutely is, as well it should be. It's unpopular. You know, again, I'm not going to pretend to know a nano of what you know about that. However, just again, my gut on this is, you know what, it's at an ebb, but then again, this is not the most popular law of the land. It was, to a certain extent, shoved down the throat to the American people at a time when the president should have been concentrating on the economy and jobs, jobs, jobs. So it's not like this is something that the whole wide world is saying, please don't strike it down, please don't strike, you know, and also, you know, the president stood there and waved his finger at the SCOTUS in that joint session address, and then came back a couple of years later and embraced his own darn super PAC. So you know what? This is not as cut and dry, and I think that the court is going to go for it and strike it down.
No matter what, it's going to be highly controversial. No matter what the court's decision is, it will be a major issue in the presidential campaign. But I do agree with you. I think that the Supreme Court is greatly concerned about its image and how much a line it's going to be tied to the far right.
Well, and I think they're concerned about their image and how much they're going to respond to the president shaking his finger at them, or the president questioning their decisions on funding of elections, and are they going to be intimidated into doing what he wants?
They've got lifetime jobs. They should just just chill.
It's not about money. It's about honor, duty, and country. It's about your responsibility as a member of the Supreme Court to uphold the values and the reputation of the court.
All right, we're going to take a break here. Mark, I want to thank you for joining us
Anytime.
and thank you for the time.